Alright, so for today's review, we're going to be taking a look at the Knipex 1376-200 ME wire strippers. Now, these are mainly made for the European market. The markings on the tool are in metric, not in standard like we would normally see here in the States. I did import these over from the UK. Currently, at the time of filming this video, Knipex doesn't really have a US version with the VDE handles that is for sale. But they do have the forged wire strippers, which have the comfort grip handles and the dip grip handles on them, but they are not insulated. But Knipex did announce that they are coming out with these insulated ones, so it's hopefully only a matter of time before we start seeing them more readily available here in the States with American wire gauge markings on them instead of the metric markings on them. But I still decided to go ahead and import these and pick them up and show you guys the tool itself. Now, these are a little bit different than the standard pair of forged wire strippers that Knipex has to offer. Obviously, the main thing on them is they have the VDE handles, or the insulated handles, which are going to hold up to, I believe, 1,000 volts, and I believe they test them to 10,000 volts, but they are rated for 1,000 volts. And like most of Knipex's insulated tools, they have the red and yellow handles. Now, I personally like these handles a lot. I feel like they're a lot more comfortable than just the standard comfort grip handles, and obviously they're going to be a lot more comfortable than just the standard grip handles. But I just prefer these handles a lot. I like the feel of them. Like on most Knipex tools, you have your model number right there. And like I said at the beginning of the video, the model number is 1376-200ME. And now here is the capability of this tool. So the minimum wire that you can cut is 15 millimeters, and then the maximum you can cut up to is 50 millimeters squared. That is for both copper and aluminum. Now, one thing to note about these is they are not rated to cut through steel wire, so don't go cutting steel wire with the cutting knives on here, as you will end up damaging that cutting surface on there. And then you have some more information down here relating to the insulation rating. And like not all of Knipex products, but most of them are made in Germany. And they're going to plaster that all over the tool, and that's just one marking right there. And if you're unfamiliar with insulated tools, they generally, at least Knipex does it. I would assume everybody else does it some way or somehow. But Knipex will always print the date that the tool was produced. So this was produced in 2023, and that's just if you've had a pair of insulated tools for a long time, you can date when the tool was made to see how well the tool is holding up over time. And how old the tool actually is. Now, coming to the inside of the handles, again, made in Germany, 1,000 volt, and then your IEC 660 900 right there, and then more of the VDE and ratings right there. Both of the handles are the same. You can see that right there. And then coming to the back side of here, you have your barcode, which is pretty much standard on all of Knipex comfort grip pliers and the VDE pliers. You don't really see it on the dipped handles because it's a little hard to print a barcode on there. But with the comfort grip and the VDE handles, you see that quite frequently. Now, there are some tools that don't get it, but majority of them do have it. And like I said previously, do not be cutting steel with these guys. And then here's the back side of the stripper. And now another thing that makes them a little bit different is these are chrome plated. Now, chrome plating, it's not going to prevent the tool from rusting. It's just going to prolong the process. Obviously, if you're working in a really damp, wet environment constantly with your tools, it's going to hold up a lot better than just the standard black oxide. But over time, it will eventually start to break down and the tool will start to rust. But the whole point of the chrome plating is to prolong that process. And if you're unfamiliar or you're not really have used chrome plated tools, they pretty much sharpen everything before they chrome plate it. And some people do tend to say that they don't cut quite as well as the standard black oxide tools, and that's just because there's a little buildup on the cutting knives or on maybe the stripping, the holes for the stripping here. Now, another key difference about these versus the standard forged wire strippers is there's no spring-loaded tool, and that's just because they don't really want your hand going past the handles that kind of defeat the purpose of them being insulated. So they don't really want your hand going past the handles to operate the spring. And there's also no screw screw cutters on here. On the forged wire strippers, there is a 8/32 and a 6/32 screw cutter on there, and it's pretty simple to use, but obviously this being an insulated tool, they didn't want to put that on here, so that is a little bit different. And then you do have this, I believe it's a T25 screw right here, so if you get the pair of pliers, or if you want to tighten or loosen up the pair of pliers after you've received them or have been using them for quite a bit of time, you can go ahead and tighten that screw right there, tighten and or loosen that screw right there, and it will adjust how the tool opens and closes or how tight it is. And like I said, this is in metric, so you're going to have your standard and solid, which are pretty much all the same. You know, your 4mm, 2mm stripping holes are relatively the same on both sides, whereas on the solid side, you can also strip 6mm solid, as well as 4mm solid, and then your millimeters just kind of go up. I believe on the forged wire stripper, the sizes range from, I believe it's 10 to 20, if I'm not mistaken, which is... You know, I believe it's the same tool. It's just obviously in metric markings. So that's kind of about it for the detail on the tool. Now we'll get to some of the functionality on this guy. So it's going to operate like a normal pair of wire strippers. I just got some 18 gauge wire right here, which would be all the way at the top hole to get that insulation off, and it does a fairly decent job. And the cutters are also nice and nicely sharpened on this guy as well. And then we have this is some European wire. I believe this is some NYM wire that I bought for a different Knipex tool that I reviewed. And this is 2.5mm solid wire. So go ahead and strip that guy. And this tool just does a decent job at stripping wire. And it does a decent job at cutting wire as well. And then we just bring in some American wire right here, which is 12 gauge stranded. So you just put that in the 2.5mm hole, and then you are able to strip that guy out. And you're able to, you know, cut that wire relatively nice. Now, the one cool thing about these cutters on here is they are nice and big, so if you are cutting through some Romex wire or some multi-conductor wire, you are going to get a nice clean cut on there, where instead of using, you know, just a pair of dikes or a pair of linemans, they're gonna pinch that. You do get a lot smoother of a cut than you would with just a pair, or excuse me, you're gonna get a lot smoother cut with these than you will with a pair of linemans or diagonal cutters. Now, another thing to note on these, just like their standard forged wire strippers, you do have this opening right there, so if you need to grip onto the head of a bolt or a fastener, you can do that right there. And then you also do have that same channel right there, so if you had, you know, some solid wire, we'll go ahead and strip some solid wire back right here, and you needed to go ahead and put a bend in that wire, you do have a little channel right there that has no teeth or anything on it that you can make a bend with on the wire, and you're not going to scratch and or scuff up that wire. So that is a nice feature that is also on the forged wire strippers, I should mention. And then on the top of the nose, you kind of have a simulated, it's not really a crosshatch design, but it is a very textured head here on these pliers. So if you did need to grip onto some wire, or you know, you had a hard piece of insulation you were trying to get off some old wire, or you needed to twist some wires together, you could do that with the head on there. Now this is, like I said, mainly for the European market. Now before Knipex came out with this wire stripper that had the VDE handles on it, they had a few other iterations of it, and this is by far, I think, the best. Now here is, you know, what was available previous. You had the Strix pliers, which has the wire stripper that you have to adjust. You just adjust this screw, open and close the head, and it adjusts the teeth here to the size of wire. And you can also cut wire with these as well. Now, they also had a pair that does not have the cutters on them. It's just the stripper itself. And like I said, same thing with these. You pretty much have to adjust the wire adjust the teeth on here to the right size so you can strip that wire. Now, both of these are mainly meant for working with wire that is inside of a box or a panel that you don't really have much to work with. And it's really tight, and you can't really get a normal pair of strippers in there. So what these basically allow you to do is get on that wire and strip it, and then hook onto that wire. So these were some of the previous options available. Now these forged wire strippers look awfully familiar in the design to these electrical installation pliers. Now, Knipex does offer a couple different variations of these installation pliers, which I've reviewed both here on the channel. But you can see that these are relatively the almost identical tool. The cutter is a little bit different, and the one big difference is the stripping capability of the tool is a lot more on the wire stripper, whereas the installation plier, you really only have 14 and 12, which I believe is 2.5 and 1.5 millimeter wire, and the electrical installation pliers do have a crimper right there for those ferrules and those types of connections. But again, VD handles, a couple different pairs that are out there, and there are some more specialty tools out there that Knipex has offered that strip 2.5 and 1.5 millimeter wire, but they did decide to come out with these. So it is going to be interesting to see if they come out with an insulated pair that is meant for the US market. Well, like I said at the beginning, I'll have the American wire gauge markings on it, so we'll see. It's just, I would assume, just a matter of time before they start rolling that out. But with that being said, that's pretty much it for this video. I will leave a link down to Knipex's UK website if you want to find out some more information about these. And like I said, if you're in the States and you're really wanting to get your hands on these, you're going to have to import them. Now, I imported them from Amazon UK, and it took about, I think it was a little over a week to get here, just with the shipping and clearing customs and things like that. So if you are interested to get your hands on a pair of these, you're going to have to import them until they become available here in the States. But with that being said, that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching.